The reason a customer churn is based on how the organization is set up to support the customer, not just the CS people. They can smooth over a lot of rough edges. They can make a lot of wrongs. They can right a lot of wrongs. But when the organization has a approach that solves the customer's problems and holistically serves the customer, I think those organizations are better. I like that concept that it's an organizational thing, not just a customer success manager thing.
Welcome, lifers, and thank you for joining us. You're listening to Lifetime Value, the customer success podcast, where we help you wrap up the week that was in customer success and start you off on the right foot for the one ahead of you. I am your host, the Elvis Presley of Customer Success Podcasts. My name is Dillon Young, and this week's guest is a PowerPoint wizard and the founder of a brand spanking new customer success consultancy, appropriately called Customer Success V3. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Larry Rains on the show today. Larry, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Dylan. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And so, Larry, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how it is you landed in the customer success space to begin with?
So, personally, I'm a single dad of 3 people, 3 young men. I've lived all over the world. I've worked in consulting, I've worked in application management, and I've worked in SaaS companies. From a career point of view, I'm a strategic thinking solution kind of a guy. I'm a fixer. When almost any company I've ever worked for, if there was somebody that was upset, they'd send Larry. If there was somebody that was frustrated, they'd send Larry. If there was somebody that was unhappy with the business or unhappy with the company or unhappy with the software solution, they'd send Larry. So I'm a fixer. I try to look outside of what is and think about what could be. I've helped build competency centers. I've built CS teams. And now I'm creating that customer success consultancy that I call Customer Success V3 for 2 reasons. One, it's kind of my third crack at trying to understand and define and share with people what customer success is. And 2, really because it's committed to focusing on how to drive value, not just for customers, but for the company and its shareholders and the employees.
Okay, so you've been around the world literally and figuratively in your profession, but how did you find customer success? What was that? Was there a moment where you realized, oh, I'm in customer success, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so when I think about customer success, I think of it as something I've been doing for 30 years, but it wasn't until recently that I really understood it in the terms of customer success. So all the way back when I was in consulting, everything that we did was breaking down a business or a customer's processes, goals, systems, people, and helping them come up with solutions, usually for a specific product. But it wasn't our product. It was somebody else's product. When I ran IT, it was about understanding the business's issues and needs and solving it with a variety of solutions, because I wasn't hemmed into just a solution. So I could go get partners. I could get phone partners. I could get server partners. I could get network partners. I could get application partners. I could get consulting partners to come in. So that was similar. When I got to Corrigo and worked in customer success, I brought all those kinds of skills and knowledge and discipline to a small company and helped it grow and deal with its larger customers. But it was around 2017, 2018 that I really discovered the industry of customer success and understood what I was doing through that lens.
And so now you're kind of planting your flag in customer success with this new consultancy. And so tell me, what is it about customer success that you love and makes you want to stick around? It's better than any one of those other pieces that you mentioned previously.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if you boil customer success down to its brass tacks, a company's coming to another company to help it solve its problem, or to a consumer base to help it solve some kind of a problem or have some kind of a service. So creating solutions that genuinely add to value of the customers by solving the customer's challenges is really the game.
Mm-hmm.
And companies that do that well are going to be the companies that win. And a lot of companies, as you're a smaller company, it's relatively easy to keep the product team in tune with what the customers are saying. It's easy to keep the marketing team in tune, the sales guys in tune. As you grow and the companies start to functionalize segments and create different stovepipes of processes or functions, it becomes much, much harder. So having watched it in a small company, having been in a big company and watched it, understanding how to take that knowledge that people that interact with customers build and bring that knowledge back into the company so that the company can drive the right kinds of products and services that genuinely add value to customers so that they can continue to grow. That is the future. The companies that do that well are the ones that are going to be playing long term.
So you and I met relatively recently at a conference, and one of the first things you said to me was you mentioned your concept of customer success 2.0. And so I know that is now outdated because
Yeah.
now the consultancy has a new number next in line. But can you explain for the audience what you mean when you refer to this idea of customer success 2.0? And because I think it's important before we then talk about customer success V3.
Sure. So customer success 2.0, when around 2019, 2020, whenever it was, Kriga reorganized. Companies reorganize all the time, but we were reorganizing inside of JLLT, and we created a group that was going to focus as customer success for our direct and internal customers, so our external and internal customers. And I took over that team. It was already a team that existed, and I took it over. When I took that team over, the best value attributes that they had, in my opinion, were they had great relationships with their customers and they had really good product knowledge. But if you asked them how they contributed value to the company, couldn't describe it. They'd talk about how great their relationships were. And from my point of view, we started to embark on what I called customer success 2.0. The relationships by themselves don't bring value unless you bring value, right? So you can have a great relationship, you can understand what's going on with your customer, but if you can't partner with product to influence the product evolution to match the customer's needs, if you can't partner with marketing to get good customer success stories recorded to help drive sales, if you can't leverage that relationship to drive growth, if you don't believe that you own that growth, if you're like, oh, well, they churned, nothing I could do about it. Well, yeah, there is a lot you could do about it, right? So there's things you need to influence inside your organization to prevent that churn. Because there's a flip side to that. The customer success person by themselves, they don't own 100% of the customer's experience. They own their experience with the customer. The organization owns the experience. But that group of people, how do they add value? So I really embarked on what I call Success 2.0, which was trying to figure out what are the right measures, what are the right metrics, what do we do with NPS, what things can we do that drive NPS, how do we measure those things, how do we measure growth, how do we measure our own team development, how do we measure the right size of a portfolio, all these kinds of things where we could start to run our business based on a metric-driven approach and be able to share the value that we were adding to the organization the way that the organization understood it. For me, that was what Customer Success 2.0 was about. Growing up and becoming more professional in our approach.
I don't know if it was on this podcast or if I heard it somebody speaking elsewhere, and I don't remember who it was either, but somebody recently referred to the relationship portion as the ticket to entry or the ticket to ride. And maybe said another way is I think the relationship helps grease the wheels for all the other stuff you have to do. But I love the way you, the subtitle to when you introduced me to the idea of customer success 2.0 is this is not beers with friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is exactly the level of bite and cynicism that I want.
Yeah. So I told that to my whole team. I was like, hey, it's great that you go out to dinner with your customer. It's great that you know who they are, but this is not beers with friends. This is business. This is business for each other, right? We're helping their business and we're helping our business. Uh, I definitely did. I definitely got on to people about beers with friends is great, but how are you using that relationship,
Yeah,
right?
that's not the end. That's a
No.
means to the end. Um, Man, they must have been bummed out when you told them they were actually going to have to work.
So they were working, but they were working ad hoc. You got totally different results from each person based on their own personal
Yeah,
style.
fair.
There's no consistency. Some were really good with certain kinds of customers. It was just completely ad hoc. So we really wanted to make a more process oriented, better ability to predict our own results and our own outcomes.
For sure. Okay, so let's now bridge the gap between customer success 2.0. That was kind of your when you went into JLLT and started to kind of like, let's say, iterate upon the group that was there. That was your idea of customer success 2.0. Now you've struck out on your own. You're creating this consultancy, or have created this consultancy, called Customer Success V3. What's different, or what is the next step in your mind for customer success?
A couple of things come up for me as a way to try to explain it. First, I had a great CFO at a company that I used to work for, and one of the things that he preached was that you had to keep in balance the value to customers, the value to shareholders, and the value to your employees. Because employees are creating the value. If you disvalue employees, you're going to lose them. You're going to have an
Mm-hmm.
extremely high cost to bring them back. You're going to have a lack of knowledge in the space that you're in, et cetera. Customers, if you're not adding value to customers, if you're just looking at them as a wallet, you're going to lose customers that go find value somewhere else. If you're not creating value for the customer, they're going to go find somewhere that's going to help them create value. But you can't give it away the farm. You got to create value for your company. So there's a sweet spot where all that works together, right? What kinds of things can you offer that balance those things? When you think about all the things that make customer success work, it's complicated. It's not just customer success managers or account managers. It's the product team. It's the information the product team has to design the product. It's the UX. It's the services that you offer that parallel or sit aside the product. It's the team that runs support. It's the team that runs training. It's the marketing group and the right messages for the right kinds of customers you're approaching. It's an organizational thing. It's an organizational phenomenon. I think that lots of people have talked about it in the customer success industry. And I think Nick Meta said something to the effect of the problem is we've said there's this thing called customer success and made it the problem of one group in an organization so that everybody can quit thinking about it. The reality is it's an organizational way to go to market. And I think that's important. So I've taken all the things that I've learned, all the things that I've different buckets and touch points and different interaction points that drive customer success. And I think of customer success in these terms as everything after sales. How do you drive feedback to improve product? How do you onboard people? How do you teach them? How do you get them to help teach themselves? How do you support them? How do you proactively help and understand what they're trying to accomplish? How do you survey them? When do you survey them? What kinds of surveys do you do? Where, when, how, why? All to get those outcomes for them, the customers, to get those outcomes for your employees and your business. For me, that's what customer success V3 is about. It's taking all as you do anything. Right? If you remember the first time you ever wrote a program, when you went back to it 5 years later, you're like, "Holy crap, I could have done that a lot better."
Mm-hmm.
So this is the third time I'm looking at it. I'm stepping back and I'm trying to distill it to what are those things that drive value and that drive value for everyone.
This definitely isn't the right word, but doesn't that feel greedy to say, "Oh, I think I should influence every single piece post sales"? And I don't mean that about you specifically, but that's where I always get caught up with this idea of customer success is, yeah, I mean, we should all be thinking about the customer, but how realistic is it for you to Larry or um, another guy named Larry to sit down with everybody post sales and say, hey, this is how you need to think about the customer. This is how you need to measure your output in relation to value for the customer. And let me just couch this by saying I actually totally agree with the theory. I just wonder if when you pitch that to somebody, and particularly like a CEO, do they say like, wow, that's just too big. That's too big.
So it's a great question, by in my head, and one I've struggled with for the last 3 or 4 years. So it depends on how a company's looking at customer success, right? So if they're calling their account management team customer success managers and that's customer success, yeah, you've got to be very careful because you don't have the authority to go tell everybody how to do everything. You can only work to influence them. But if you define, as some companies do, they define customer success as a chief customer officer or somebody in charge of all operational interactions with customers after sales. Some people do that.
Mm-hmm.
That person can drive all those things, right? And they can organize that way. Even if they're in different functional groups reporting to different people, remember, my fundamental belief is the organizations that can truly align around customers, whether it's the customer success organization or the marketing organization or the services organization or the product organization, the companies that can do it as a culture are going to be the ones that win. They're going to succeed better than others. They're going to have products that do a better job solving customers' needs and adding value. They're going to have marketing messages that are stronger, that resonate with customers that are hearing them. They're going to have support functions that understand their impacts to the customers and how to drive customer value just through support. They're going to have learning programs that align with what customers need and enable customers. One of the great quotes I have from a customer recently, as we were trying to be more ownership of what happens to the customer. And when we didn't own it, we'd go and try to influence it, right? So we'd say, hey, the customers are saying this about what you do. Is there anything we can do about it? Right. So in the cases where we are in the shoe of the customer success manager trying to do that, one of the great things I got at a customer advisory board meeting, is a customer stood up, the head of product was asking, what can we do to help you? And two customers actually stood up and said, hey man, look, quit sending your salespeople to us. We don't even like them. And start listening to what your CS people are telling you, because they understand our business and they know what we need. And that is we were bound in our roles and we were trying to influence the rest of the organization. But if you're talking to a higher level person like a CEO, a CEO or a CFO, a lot of them are trying to understand what the hell is customer success and why do I care, right? I've even been in arguments with people about, is customer success a cost of business or is it a cost of goods, right? So is it an expense or is it a cost of goods? So it depends on whether you view customer success as a growth component, right? So fundamentally, what is customer success and how do you want to leverage it in your business? Is it just that team of people interacting with a customer, or is it my company's approach to interacting with customers? I think that's the big difference.
And I don't want to harp on this too much, but is it dangerous to make it a philosophy as opposed to a tactical operational role? Because most people view it as a tactical operational role, and I don't mean those as like swear words, right? But like people doing the work every day. Is it dangerous to instead say it's a theory? It's a thing that it's in the fiber of the way we do business. Is there a danger in that? Because that's easier to throw away at the end of the day.
It is. It's about how honest you want to be with yourself about what your company's doing, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So yes, there are tactical roles. There are several tactical roles, right? So there's the customer success management function, which is really account management, a version of account management around a specific product. What is the role of that? Is it to teach them how to use the product? Is it to understand what they need and help them drive outcomes and help the company understand what their needs are to drive product? Or a lot of customer success programs evolve out of support. Some customer success programs align directly with the commercial business. Which one's healthier? Which one's better, right? So they're definitely tactical roles. They need to be defined. But when all the roles are defined and work better together, you're going to get a better outcome, right? So I'll give you a good example. Our marketing team wanted to create cabs. They could have scheduled some cabs, invited some customers, had some programs. They partnered with a customer success management team to find the right customers to bring, the right voices to listen to bring those relationships to the group, and immediately walk out of the first cab with 10 videos, right? That's a partnership where they were working together. Marketing knew what they wanted. Customer success knew who the customers were. We brought them the customers. They got a lot of value for that, for the company. Same thing with product. right? Product first didn't, they're like, why are we going to cab? Why are we doing that? Well, because these customers are going to tell us what's going on in their industries. These customers are going to help you anticipate what you need to be thinking about. You can ask these customers things, but they're like, we don't want to get too tactical about product changes with the customers. Well, maybe you need to get more tactical with product changes and customers around specific areas of a product and product councils where cabs should be more strategic. But all these different groups need to get something out of that, right? Marketing needs to get something out of that. Product needs to get something out of that. But if they all have different points of view around how we're interacting with customers, it's not going to work. It doesn't work well. Yes, there's tactical roles, but all those tactical roles built together in an overriding vision will drive a better outcome.
So I'm a big fan of theory and expecting that every scenario is you're gonna apply the same theory, but the actual tactics behind it are going to be different every time. But I wonder if there are any, as you begin to go to market and explain your theory and how you plan to implement customer success for folks that want to hire you in your consultancy. Are there any easy examples you provide of like, hey, this is how it's done today. This is actually how it should be done to provide better results. Anything, and I don't want you to share your secret sauce here, but is there any examples like that you think are easy that can help crystallize this idea for folks?
I'm actually developing a full model of all the interactions of different things. And I don't expect anybody to go, okay, cool, I get it. Make that happen. That's not going to happen, right? It's just not how it's going to play out. But what you can do is find out what matters right now to that company,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
understand where they are on almost a customer success capability maturity model, and say, where do you want to be? And which areas do you want to move? Which levers do you want to pull?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because every organization has a reality of who's in it, what their positions are, how they're structured, fighting for survival, fighting for relevance. All those things exist. You can't just pretend that you can rock up with a better answer and everybody's going to go, oh, come on, we'd love a better answer because it threatens this person or that person or whatever.
Sure. Yep.
The reality is, if you can explain, hey, here's all the possible places, which one's the most painful for you? Right? Is the driving your product to match up to customer requirements? Is you've got 500 customer requests for the product in a queue. Do you need to prioritize those? You need to focus on how to prioritize those. How do you want to go about prioritizing those? Hey, you want to drive customer videos that are useful to your marketing program. How do you develop advocates? How do you think about advocates? How do you create a program that drives behaviors that lend itself to developing advocates? Because you don't just go out and go, I'm going to create an advocate today, right? That's a long-term thing with lots of interactions and lots of specific things you can do to create that.
Could you imagine, sidebar, if that's how you treated things in real life? Like you wanted to be friends with somebody, you're like, I'm going to go create an advocate out of that person.
Yeah, it doesn't happen, does it?
No.
It's not just a single person. It's the whole, when they call the service desk, is that a good experience for them?
Yeah.
When they go to the training, did it teach them what they needed to know? All that stuff contributes. And whether you own it or not, all of that stuff contributes to the overall lifetime value you're going to get out of that customer.
Lifetime value. Ding, ding, ding. I'll pay you later. Larry, do you want to chat about a couple of the current event topics?
Absolutely.
All right, first one I've got is, this feels clickbaity. Everybody's doing it. There is a lot of talk about ChatGPT going on overall and within customer success specifically. I don't mean this any sort of way, Larry, but you mentioned it. You've been around for 30 plus years and in your own words, been doing customer success in some capacity all of that time. And more recently, it's been named customer success. But so you've been around for a while. How do you view this change and what occur? It seems like it's overnight, right? Of everything is influenced by AI and specific to customer success. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? How do you view it?
I'm going to first answer that last question, and then I'm going to kind of explore it with you. So what comes up for me? So is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? what's a bad thing? If it's helping you drive the outcomes you're looking for, it's a good
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's explore. Can it? Right? And you're right. I've been around a while, and anybody that was around in the late '90s can remember the World Wide Web, right?
Mm.
And everybody was scurrying to figure out how to use the World Wide Web. How do I use that to drive my business? How do I use that as a oil company? How do I use that as a bank? How do I use that as a, and 20 years later, we have completely different ways of doing some things, right? You buy a car completely differently today than you did 20 years ago. You can buy it online from a vending machine, right? You can, that didn't exist
Yeah.
without the web,
Yeah.
right? And Chat GPT is going to change the way some things work, but Chat GPT is just one AI chat engine, right? And what is Chat GPT at the end of the day? Chat GPT itself is just an unstructured interface to give you access to a huge amount of information, right? So the universe of human knowledge that it can tap into in an unstructured way, you can ask it questions and it'll bring you answers. That's what it does, basically.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
people that are using it to write college papers. I know programmers that use it to write code. I know people that use it to ask questions about their customers or whatever, right? So there's all kinds of uses, and it's still to be understood how we can use it. But there are things we can do right now in customer success that leverage Chat GPT kinds of things specifically. And that's researching our customers, right? Because there's all kinds of information out there about our customer. There's all kinds of information about their industry, and you can go and research it. The number one place people use that kind of technology, that AI kind of technology, is in support, right? There's those chat bots and things with support.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those chat bots and things are very, very simple. They can get a
Simple.
lot better. They can
Mm-hmm.
get a lot better. But in the case of any given company creating an application or use of this stuff that's useful for them with their specific customer bases requires proprietary knowledge, right? Chat GPT can't search their customer use database. They can't search their customer sales history, their customer billings. They can't search all that stuff. That's
Mm-hmm.
proprietary information that's not accessed there. Therefore, all these ideas of creating amazing databases of all your customer knowledge is still a requirement to leverage AI for customer success. Do I think it's going to change the way we do some of it? Absolutely. I can even today the great the biggest and the best and the winningest customer success software platforms, they're all about getting all that data in one place from all these different sources,
Mm-hmm.
structuring that data, and then using that data to drive automation. Well, that can be done even simpler as AI comes to bear, but you've got to have that knowledge base first of proprietary information to be able to leverage it. I can imagine it completely changing the way stuff works. If you think back to the internet and the web when it first came out, we're all, I mean, I first had internet access in college, and it was a green screen with a type in a
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
type, search for something, you get some horrible looking stuff. Well, as things evolved, the way people would just connect to that and use it became apps, search engines,
Yeah.
all kinds of different things. I think the same thing's going to happen here. I think humans are going to learn to interact with that, and they're going to develop patterns of interactions. And I think a lot of the softwares, whether it's customer success or otherwise, are going to change the way we interface with those softwares, leveraging an AI kind of approach. Think about how many systems you use today where the screen sets went to web-based looking screens, right? I think we're going to move to a
Mm-hmm.
chat-based interaction. I think it'll even be voice-driven at some point. I can imagine a day where a customer success person rocks up to their desk, talks to their computer, and says, "Hey, produce the monthly business review for customer ABC and schedule the meeting with Susan," and then moves on to do something else because the system's going to take care of it.
Well, then where's his value, his or her value? It's just in then having the conversation, disseminating the information, thinking critically about it.
You're still the creating a QBR is just a collecting information,
Yeah.
sharing
And,
that information with the
formatting
customer
it.
and understanding the reaction from the customer and understanding what the customer is telling you's changed or understanding the customer's request for something different.
Yeah.
It's not going to be able to do that, or at
So
least not in the near term.
in summary, you do not fear our AI overlords.
No, I view them as there are a whole host of things that'll evolve and may go away because of it. Not this one. This is a human to human interaction inside a business context.
Okay. Fast forward. You are you've been hired by a company, your consultants has been hired by a company. Maybe you're a fractional CCO and you're building a customer success department. Do you today consider Chat GPT or any other generative AI platform as a piece of that? Would you are you trying to find ways today to implement that into the workflow of a customer success department? Or do you wait for tools, like in the case of like a support chatbot, do you wait for tools to start being offered that implement it?
So if I was implementing from ground a customer success function today, I might use a chat GPT to find some templates to improve the kinds of interactions we might have with customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might search for that to pick the best ones, but I still got to decide, do I like that? Do I not like that? Is that achieving the outcome I wanted to achieve or whatever? But it's a way to search faster and get more information and more tools into the group. I would absolutely be searching out what I thought was the best, most enabled support desk AI tool, because I think there's a huge potential there and to get way better. But all of that requires that I've done my work to build up the knowledge that that thing can leverage. And that's step one, right? Step one is building up that knowledge base of how to use the product, how to answer the questions that get asked. Because if you don't have that knowledge available in a digital way to feed that engine's not going to add you any value.
So at the end of the day, our value will be in knowledge, the smartest ways of using these tools, and then obviously I always go back to critical thinking, the ability to think critically about the outputs from these tools.
100%. And these tools today can search and report, right? They can search and report. They can't. That's all they're doing. That's all I've seen them do. When I've played with it, that's all I've been able to see it do. Even the guy that I know that uses it to write code, it writes 80% of his code. Speeds him way up, but he has to modify it, change it, add to it all the nuances to make it connect to something else. It's an enhancer. It's not a replacer.
Got it. All right, switching gears. There's a gentleman on, I think this was on Twitter, actually, Hakan Ozturk, that wrote this very short and simple statement. A top CSM is always up to date with what's going on in the industry. And I imagine they mean the customer's industry. Others are just lagging behind. Period. Full stop. I'm a little bit allergic to superlatives like always, but what do you think about this statement? Have you seen this in your leadership roles? Do you see the folks that stay up to date, that are getting all the Google alerts or reading the industry magazines, whatever? Are those the folks that are typically doing the best? They're reaping the greatest rewards?
Simply said, yes, right? Yes, 100%. I 100% agree with this assessment. And let me share a couple of thoughts. So number one, all the way back when I was in consulting, when I first started consulting, we organized people by industry and by product set, right? Because when you rock up in some place and you want to get $250 an hour, you better know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you better understand how to talk about what's going on in their industry. Otherwise, you're just a guy talking, right? So it's got to be in context that they understand, and it's got to be meaningful and valuable to them. Remember all the way back to the beginning of this, we're trying to drive value for our customers. How do I do that if I don't understand their environment? I have to understand. So all the way back to consulting, we were doing that. And the big consultants, the big five consultants, they were experts at bringing industry knowledge to their teams. Experts at it. They were brilliant. They had knowledge bases. They had all organizational constructs around it. And software is catching up, I would argue, to understanding that. Now, in my last employer, one of the products that we supported had lots of customers in lots of industries. And they went and did a exhaustive marketing research about which industries were we excelling the best at, were we getting the highest positive feedback, and of those industries, which ones had the largest place for us to grow. And they literally were reorganizing the entire sales function, product function, customer success function, onboarding functions, all around industry specific stuff. Why? And number one, I completely agree with that strategy. Why do I agree with that? Because we all talk about wanting to be trusted advisors. We all want to talk about being able to influence our customers, help them add value. That doesn't happen generically. We're way too far gone. In 1970, when people were developing applications and custom solutions for companies, and then people started to break out and build solutions that they could apply to multiple companies, generic might have gotten it. We're in a world of finesse, right? We're in a world of very specific solutions for very specific reasons, or you're going to get trumped.
The only pushback I might have there is that it relies on the maturity of your company, right? So your previous employer, like you said, they had a ton of different segmentation products and markets that they were serving. And in that case, sure, I think the theory makes sense, and I'll also explain why I'm hedging even there. But in a smaller organization, what if you're a $1 to $5 million company and you're the only CSM, right?
Are you
And
serving multiple industries? Are you serving a specific industry? In all
well, what
likelihood,
if
that $1 to $5 million company is serving a
is
specific
serving a
niche
single
market.
industry, but maybe
Yeah.
now they have two products, right? Do you think the number of product lines don't matter? It's just the industry being served.
I think a CSM to succeed and be extremely effective has to understand the industry and the product combination. And
Okay.
those overlaps make them exceptional if they can understand both. You can understand one without the other and still do your job and be good. But if you understand both, you're going to excel. You're going to be the better ones.
My second point was going to be around the chicken or egg scenario.
Yeah.
Is it that these guys are high performers and so they really lean in to the industry and the just a constant learning mentality so that they can be as sharp as possible? Are those folks always going to rise to the top, whether or not they're actually reading, industry magazines, industry outlet information outlets? Or do you
Um,
really believe that the actual staying up to date with what's going on in their target industry is a key? Is that somehow improving their success rate?
I'm thinking about an honest answer to that. So, yes, I believe that there are people that are always going to just be top performers and they're going to do whatever it takes to succeed. Now, why are they going to learn the industry? Because they know that's necessary to succeed. So
Got
if
me.
you're creating
Okay.
if you're creating an organization, if you're creating an organization of a lot of people and you want your organization to have capability, then you need to create components that are going to feed that organization the kind of expectation to learn industry information. Whether you build that into a career path model or whether you build that into a career competency and career path annual evaluation process. How well are you learning industry taxonomy? How well are you learning industry trends? If you build that in, you're going to have a better organization with better CSMs across the board, even though your top performers will always be your top performers.
Okay. I think you've convinced me. The superlative is what got me. It's the superlative that got
The
me.
always.
Always. Always. I'm always going to
Well,
lean in and say, do you think it's
the
always?
the interesting thing that comes up for me when you get onto, I suppose, always scare me too. If you're working, like when I worked in IT, it was in a specific industry. I didn't actually have to go study the industry because they were studying the industry and I could use it to my
Yeah.
advantage, learn from
Yeah.
them. When you're in a SaaS function now, you're trying to attract and retain and solve problems for a whole bunch of customers in an industry, and they all have their own interpretations of what's going on. And I would argue you need your own. You need your own interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's where I was leaning is somebody else, like the product guys and your product marketing folks and then your marketing folks, they're positioning for communication to the
Yeah.
industry specifics.
Yeah. But I'll give you a good example that this might help. Working with a huge national grocer and you're working with their head of national and international facilities, right? If you roll up in there talking about penny fryers at restaurants, you don't have any credibility. if you talk about what you did last week at Bank of America, you don't have any credibility. But if you can talk about the refrigeration challenges of groceries, the trends that are going on with refrigeration changes and monitoring systems for groceries, uh, remote temperature sensing and how that's being leveraged by other grocers, you can have a discussion and you can have credibility and you can have influence. If you don't have that, you can only listen.
And they're not going to pay you to listen for long.
Mm-mm.
A weirdly specific example. Is that from a previous role you had?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. All right, Larry, I want to take you to the next segment of the show, and that is a segment where we give you an opportunity to share your hot take, what it is you might want to see go away for a while. So this is what we refer to as BS in CS.
Biggest load of crap I've ever heard.
Number one bullshit. Oh, number one bullshit.
Larry, if you could choose one, what is the trend, catchphrase, or otherwise related to customer success that you would like to see done away with forever?
So, Dillon, there's a lot of things that go on in customer success that could be picked. Maybe because we've talked about it a little bit, I'm going to go with this one, and I know you might not agree completely, but the notion of the customer success team, the idea that a small group of people are responsible for whether or not a customer churns. The reason a customer churns or not is based on how the organization is set up to support the customer, not just the CS people. They can smooth over a lot of rough edges. They can make a lot of wrongs. They can right a lot of wrongs. But when the organization has a approach that solves the customer's problems and holistically serves the customer, I think those organizations are better. I like that concept that it's an organizational thing, not just a customer success manager thing.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think we've talked about how I thoroughly appreciate a theory that is applied uniquely to each situation. Not always the most scalable, but where I fear that for a role and a practice that for so many folks they still aren't even quite sure what a CSM does.
Yeah.
To now say, okay, poof, the CSM is gone, and now everybody has like a fraction of the responsibilities that the CSM had.
Yeah, I think that would be problematic. I
Yeah.
think that would be problematic. So
I think that's where I'm at.
I even had working in an organization that didn't really buy into that came from lots of places, the leaders, and they didn't really buy into the SaaS concepts of customer success. I was talking to my direct boss at one time, and he said, you just think differently about everything than everybody. You think about what the customer is going to say. You think about what the customer's needs. You're not just thinking about the sales number, right? You're thinking about what's happening. We need that. He said, right. He was the head of sales. And I was like, yeah,
that's a rare bird for a sales guy to tell you that.
Yeah. So it was like, yes, we need that, but it's a delicate balance, right? Nothing's ever completely black and white, and getting concepts across. And I agree with your risk assessment that if you said, hey, it's an organizational thing, then the people that want to will just say, oh yeah, it's an organizational thing. We all do it and wipe it out, right? That can absolutely happen. And again, that comes back to how honest are you being about what you're doing. And that's where outside parties can come in and help, right? Outside parties can come in and say, okay, look, you're hearing all these messages. What are you really doing? What do you really want to accomplish? And what's the best way to do that? It's more than just a customer success team. It's a customer success team plus an organizational awareness and responsibility.
I think so often people, this is maybe just something that sticks in my craw, and that's how everybody brings up Snowflake, right? So are you familiar with the Snowflake story? Yeah. No customer success team, absolutely astronomical growth. And it is in so many ways this outlier and has this success bias to the story that does nothing to balance how many companies have failed spectacularly because they did not have any single individual focused on the customer and the customer experience. You know, I am not afraid to say, I've said it before, I worship at the altar of customer success and what it does. Now, might it need to change? I totally agree. And should it be more, I don't know, believed in by the entire organization, or should it influence more of our decisions? Should it be talked more about in that way in every conversation, from accounting to engineering and everywhere in between? Yes, but I agree with you 100% that I think it's one plus the other, not one or the other.
I think it's one plus. I'd be cautious to say get rid of a customer success function. I think it depends on the business you're in, right? So if you're in a business to business model, those are usually more complex softwares. They need guidance, they need relationships, they probably integrate to other systems. There's a lot going on there that needs a relationship management with the customer specifically. If you're talking about a business to consumer relationship, or a completely product driven relationship, even if it's business to business where people pick up the product and use it, and it's thousands of them, right? Thousands and thousands of them. You're not going to assign a huge group of people as customer success to drive that. That product has to drive that. That product setup has to drive its usability. Can I pick it up and start using it or not? Like when you go to Amazon, nobody called you up to talk about your Amazon ordering experience and how to order more of the things you wanted because it was so complicated. The Amazon guided you. You picked it up and started using it. Those kinds of products have a different strategy than a business to business strategy. A business to business strategy is going to have an account management function that's commonly called customer success managers in this world. So
except in the case of Snowflake, right? That's an enterprise level tool that is product-led growth.
And it's a product-led growth strategy that you can have that for certain kinds of products. But I guarantee you, somebody was thinking about who's calling support, what are they asking, how do we fix that, how do we make it more obvious to use? If that's not customer success, I don't know what is. Now, did they have some specific person in a customer success manager role? Maybe not, but they definitely had somebody was thinking about what's happening to the customer and what kind of feedback are they getting from customers.
For sure. Larry, let's wrap it up. The first question I want to ask you is, who out there is moving the customer success profession forward in the past 7 days? Who is it you want to give a shout out to as your CS player of the week?
So that's never an easy question. For me personally, having come from where I came from and having just recently left it, I miss all my old team. And I'll tell you right now, there are a number of people there doing a number of amazing things, and they're starting to come out and share them, right? So they're starting to go out and speak with people. And all the stuff that I learned and did, I didn't do without them. So like Taylor Hodges, she's the CS leader for the Krigo function. She's driving all of the CS managers now and teaching them how to be like her. I had to look at her and say, hey, look, I don't need one Taylor Hodges. I need 10 of them. You need to make 10 of you. Here's a group of people, go work with them, make them work like you. She's incredibly passionate about it. Terry used to be a customer of ours. Terry Byerly used to be a customer of ours. He's now implementing our second software for customer success management. He's passionate about the customers. And even while he's working with the tools that enable the team, he's viewing it through the lens of how does this impact the customer, which I think is going to make a huge difference in the way it works. We had a guy named Praful Akella. He drove our Voice of the Customer program. He's a huge avid researcher and theorist about customer success. So he was always challenging how we developed our strategy and what we were thinking about. I think all those people, and there's another one too, Matthew Harbour. We had a lot of third-party partners that we deployed to our customers. So he's now going to evaluate how to create a partner success program. He's driving a partner success program and a customer success capability maturity model to measure them, to better drive and help them grow to meet our expectations as they interact with our customers. I think all those people are going to create something amazing there. And I think those people are going to start sharing that, and you should start to look for them. Taylor Hodges, Terry Byerly, Praful Akella, Matthew Harbour.
I'll put them in the show notes. Encourage everybody to go and find them. Referrals and recommendations. If you could take the audience members and point them in the direction of any one thing, and it does not need to be customer success related, could also be an activity of some sort. What would that be, Larry?
Go out, participate, go learn, right? Because go to conferences, go to listen to podcasts like the Customer Success Podcast.
The customer.
So learn, share, because every business is slightly different. Every software is slightly different. Every engagement model is slightly different. And every one of us is solving the same problem slightly different ways. And you can get new ideas from others. Go to places like the Customer Success Collective. I mean, Gainsight has a conference that thousands of people come to that don't even use their software. Go places, learn and listen. Realize what you're listening to. And remember, it's always about driving results for your customers, your company, and your team. And remember what Bill Gates said. This is a great game. There's lots of competition and you keep score with money. So don't go learn and share, but it's not all about the fun that I'm having. It's about how I'm having fun creating value.
I love it. I love that Bill Gates quote. You told me that before and it made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Because he just doesn't seem like the sort of guy that would think that way. Where can folks connect with you, Larry?
Today, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you look up Larry Rains, I'm the one that's from Memphis. So as we have Elvis on the mic today, you got Larry from Memphis. Look for me on LinkedIn.
Yep. Perfect. Larry, this has been a ton of fun. I knew the minute I met you, the way you talk, the way you think about customer success, man, I love it. And I hope you keep doing your thing. And I wish you the best of luck with the new consultancy.
Hey, thanks, Dillon. I appreciate it very, very much. Thanks for inviting me.
You've been listening to Lifetime Value, the podcast for customer success professionals. If you like what you've heard, please rate our show and subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Please note that the views expressed in these conversations are attributed only to those individuals on this podcast and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of their respective employers. For all inquiries, please reach out via email to dillon@lifetimevaluepodcast.com. Find us on YouTube via our channel, Lifetime Value, and find us on the socials at Lifetime Value Podcast. Until next time.
This is Larry Rains with Customer Success V3, and you're listening to the Customer Success Podcast.
Booyah! I didn't even have to ask. That was fantastic.